Welcome back to another segment of Instructional Design Conversations here at Royal Roads University. Today our topic is instructional strategy. This week we are focusing on instructional strategy, which is one of the most important and interesting aspects of the instructional design process. Instructional strategy deals with how do you teach X? How do you teach Y? We're going to look at Merrill's principles of instruction. What Merrill has suggested is that you need to start off with a problem. He suggests that we engage a demonstration principle where learning is promoted when learners observe a demonstration. An application principle, learning is promoted when learners apply the new knowledge. Activation principle, learning is promoted when learners activate prior knowledge or experience. Integration principle, learning is promoted when learners integrate their new knowledge into their everyday world. And task-centered principle, learning is promoted when learners engage in a task-centered instructional strategy. So the question for you today is, what are your thoughts on Merrill's principles? Do you think David Merrill's learning principles lack anything? So we've got the problem at the center, demonstration, application, integration, and activation. I'll start us off. I have a tendency to utilize some of Merrill's principles. I don't know if they're applicable in every situation. I do ascribe to cognitive information processing. I believe learning is a process, and I do believe in the importance of tapping into your long-term storage. So I think that when we give students an opportunity to connect new learning to something that they already know, it makes the learning a lot easier. It makes it meaningful, and meaningful means that they keep it forever. It's always there. They can retrieve it at any time. So I always use this example of the colonies when Christopher Columbus came to the New World and discovered the colonies. I say, okay, how can we explain this to a student at a grade 6 level or grade 7 level? They're familiar with baseball. Perhaps we can consider the bases as some of the places where Christopher Columbus discovered, and then he basically called them, the colonies of the countries that he supported. But then we kind of look at the end, Columbus wanted to get back to home. So the home base is kind of the deal. So using something like baseball to help students understand colonization, they can connect that new learning to something that they already know. So I'll pass it over to Keith. You look like you have something.
It's very familiar. The principles could be found word for word in performance-based training I used decades ago, and in most cases that was aimed at a skill, and so it was very obvious that you had to have demonstration. It was an integral part. And I think these days you can make the case for all of these principles in most disciplines. But what you might find is that some principles act out over a much longer term, that they aren't necessarily relevant in every 30-minute section in a classroom, and are going to be perhaps done once in a unit. And that perhaps, again, this strategy is something you would apply in the design of a longer portion of learning.
When I look at the principles, I wonder if evaluation reflection is possibly missing. I could read it into some of those principles and see where you could ask students to reflect or evaluate. So they apply something. Did it work? Did it not work? Were you successful? How would you change it the next time you do it? But that's kind of the piece I feel is not articulated well.
Yeah, I guess the other thing too is looking at, should these principles be applied like across a program? Like, are we going to target places in a program where they're going to have opportunities for integration, as opposed to having them be applied, it's almost like this would be in every the delivery of a lesson,
Mhm.
you want to have these opportunities. So I'm not sure if it would necessarily work at a program level. It could, but it's something that we'd certainly need to look at. Anyone?
It's one set, it's like, you know, so here are 5 principles. There are other authors, scholars who
Yes.
might say, here are the 7
Yeah.
things.
Candidates 9.
Or the-
Yeah.
yeah.
13 recommended.
They're definitely guides,
Yeah.
great guides.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing. And we will see you in our next round of discussions.